What's going on, guys? Jivan back with another video. A couple days ago, I was playing solo arena on stream and I won 4 arena games in a row. And so after stream, obviously I was thinking to myself, like, how can I use this gameplay to help you guys improve? I sat there trying to think, how did I get to the point where I could win this many arena games in a row? So I opened up a notebook and just wrote and wrote and wrote. And in this video, I'm going to show you some of the biggest things that I came up with that helped me get to where I am today in arena. Before we hop into it, please consider using code JivanTV in the Fortnite item shop, or at least make sure you're using somebody's code because it helps us out a ton. Without further ado, let's hop into this video. So in the background, you're going to be seeing all 4 of those wins. For each of the wins, we're going to be talking about something new. Timestamps are down below if you want to skip around, but for this first win, we're going to be talking about warm-ups and what they're actually useful for. So what does a warm-up actually do for me nowadays? I'm going to be completely honest, a warm-up does not too much for me now. I can hop on and absolutely slay out without a warm-up. The day where I got all these wins in a row, I did not do a warm-up. Maybe some of you need to warm up your fingers, get the ice off them at the start of the day, and that's totally understandable. But here's the thing. In my eyes, warm-ups are not about warming up. The benefit of warm-ups is the improvements you get from it. In fact, if you look at your warm-up as simply an opportunity to get your hands warm and nothing else, you're going to be missing out. A warm-up is best spent practicing your weak points in the game, so that eventually one day they won't be weak points anymore. So for example, if you really struggle with consistency in your building, every single day when you're warming up your fingers trying to get the ice off, you should be practicing your free builds, or practicing in a Peace Control Raider map, or practicing 1v1s. That way, you're not only getting the ice off your fingers and getting ready for arena or tournament, whatever you're playing, you're also practicing your biggest weak points, starting the day with your biggest downfall. If you do this consistently, you see improvements in your weak point and eventually it becomes a strength. Once it becomes a strength, you switch it out and you start warming up something else. For example, your aim. The only warm-up I pretty much did all of Chapter 3 was Kovacs. Kovacs isn't even Fortnite. There's no building, it's just aiming. Yet this season was probably my biggest season of improvement because aim was my biggest weak point. Now you might be wondering, can't you just practice your weak points later in the day? Like, why do you have to do it in your warm-up? And honestly, that's fine. You can practice your weak points whenever you want, by all means, but it's just like homework. The common thing everybody is told is get your work done right as you get home. That way you have it out of the way. If you procrastinate it, it might get to the point where you still haven't done your homework and it's the middle of the night and then you just are like, screw it, I'm not even gonna do it. And if you skip too much homework, eventually you're failing the class. It's the same thing with warm-ups. If you skip your warm-up every day or spend your warm-up time not practicing the right things, if you're not practicing something you're bad at, then you're gonna be missing out and not improving as fast as everybody else. It's just like skipping your homework. If you skip it at the start of the day and you never actually end up coming back to it at the end of the day, you get an F for the day and you don't see that improvement. And everyone else that did their Kovacs, did their warm-up, whatever it is, they're seeing that improvement. So what I want you to do is really think about what you're struggling with the most in your game. Is it your building, editing, aiming, all of the above? Add that to your warm-up and do it at the start of every day. If you're feeling extra saucy, you can do it to end the day as well. I actually do a lot of Kovacsing at the start and end of the day just to see the maximum amount of improvement. Back in the day, I used to do the same thing for Peace Control. I don't even practice my Peace Control anymore, and you guys can see it's not bad at all. The way I got it here was doing like a 30-minute warm-up in Raiders Peace Control map every day. Mark my words, warm up the right way, and you'll see mad improvements. That's it for game number 1. Let's move on to game number 2, where we're going to talk about how to play consistent. This is probably the biggest thing I struggled with in Fortnite, the biggest thing that separates me from top-tier pros. Even today, a little bit. I'm starting to get a lot better with consistency, and here's how. Some days, arena is just gonna be harder. That's just how it is. Like a day before a cash cup, usually all the sweats are on, preparing, just wkeying everybody. And so on those days, arena might be a little bit harder. So if you're ever super down bad and you're just losing every single game and your mentality is 0, just stop playing arena that day and go train your mechanics or 1v1 somebody, or hop off for the day entirely. That way you're not losing your mind in arena. Usually when you start to rage, that's when you should probably hop off because you're not going to be seeing the improvements and not going to be playing as good. Like we just talked about, warm-up is key for seeing consistent improvements. it's not necessarily key for playing consistently every single day. Maybe you have a ritual at the start of the day, you free build for 5 minutes, you 1v1 somebody for 10 minutes, and boom, all of a sudden you're magically good for the day. That stuff is all just in the back of your head. The real truth about warm-ups, like we said, is seeing consistent improvements over time. So to get to the point where you can play consistently, you definitely should warm up and practice your weak points. During the gaming session, make sure that you're happy and having fun and not just grinding to grind. This is something that comes and goes, like I struggle with it here and there, and I know a lot of other people do too. Sometimes we just get so caught up in the competition of the game, get so caught up in wanting to be the best, wanting to get better at the game, and sometimes it just feels like, we're not getting anywhere. The truth is, we're all improving over time, and thinking like that is actually going to slow down our improvements. The times where I improve the most and play my best are the times where I'm playing the game because I love to play it. If I force myself to get on because I know I need to grind if I want to get better, I'm not going to be playing nearly as good on those days because I'm forcing myself to play. The best time to play is when you actually want to. If you're constantly forcing yourself to turn on Fortnite and practice so that you can get better at the game, that's going to lead to your downfall and lead to you being just not happy, simply put. So for me, Fortnite is my full-time job. I stream and make YouTube videos for a living, at least for now. And so over the past year, I always would make myself get on, even if I didn't want to. Eventually that added up and I started getting really upset and I wasn't having fun with the game. But recently I've started giving myself days off. Like whenever I don't feel like playing, I just don't. And I've started playing so much better. I'm on the game less than I used to be, and I'm playing better than I ever have. So the reason I'm telling you this, it's just simply put, play when you want to, make sure you're happy when you're playing, otherwise you're not going to be playing as good or as consistent. Mentality is half the game, especially for me. This is my main source of inconsistency. When I'm low energy, I'm sad, grumpy, anything negative, I play a lot worse. So like I said, anytime I'm feeling anything negative, anytime I'm just not with it, I'm not gonna force myself to play like I used to. But I still do want to see those improvements. So sometimes on those days, I'll just hop on and grind Kovacs for like 30 minutes and call it a day. That way, I'm still proud of myself, I still got some practice in, but I also didn't destroy my mentality by forcing myself to play the game. Some of you may have found that stupid, but I also do know for a fact that some of you needed to hear that. Another thing you gotta hear, health is key. I recently started getting back on my healthy side. Like for a while, I had a lot of unhealthy habits, whether it be a bad sleep schedule, not getting my exercise in, not seeing the sunlight, not touching grass. Doing that type of stuff is eventually going to lead you to becoming burnt out. I'm speaking from personal experience. So recently, I've been starting to get back towards my healthy side. Lifting weights every day, going to play basketball, going to longboard in a state park, like whatever it is, I'm making sure that I get out, get healthy, eat healthy, sleep consistent, all that stuff, and it's been helping out. I've been happier and I've had more energy day to day. And like I just said, mentality and energy is the biggest key factor to a good day of grinding. So with all that stuff I just said, I've been seeing a lot of improvements in my consistency. Hopefully that helps you guys out. So for game number 3, we're going to get into some actual in-game strategies. So obviously, Tilted Towers is the hottest drop of the map. If you drop there every single game, you're going to die off spawn so much, it can get frustrating. So I usually drop Tilted every other game, and then I go to my solo cash cup spot the other games. By alternating between the two drops, you get a variety of practice, and it helps maintain your mentality. Versus if you drop Tilted every single game, you're probably gonna go nuts after a while. So I have different strategies for each spot. When I'm dropping Tilted, I try to go for the highest kill game possible. And here's how you get a high kill game. First, kill as many players as you can at Tilted. And if you manage to survive Tilted, then you hop in a car, drive over to the Rift location, and Rift to Coney or the gas station nearby Coney. Going to that part of the map is where a lot of people rotate, so if you manage to win your fights at Tilted and win your fights over there, you have a very high chance of dropping a 20 bomb. Doing this rotational strat is how almost everybody drops 20 bombs in the game. From there, try to get a car and use cars to find players around you, save all of your movement until like second or third zone, and then just launch pad around and fight every single player you see. If you manage to survive the whole game and end fights fast, you can drop 20s. Now, on the other side of things, when I'm landing at my solo cash cup spot, I try to play the game out a lot smarter. I'll try to avoid fighting in the center of the map because that's where a lot of third parties go. When I play at my solo cash cup spot, I'm playing for the win, so I take fights kind of close to the dead side of zone. This is a good way to get mid-game kills, but to also play consistent. So when I'm on a win streak like I am here, I'll land there every single game and just try to win as many games in a row by wkeying the dead side of the zone. It doesn't get you 20 bombs, but I still got double-digit kills every single game. So it's one thing to choose which fight you're actually going to take, but what about actually winning those fights? Here's the 3 biggest things that I vouch for getting better at fighting. The first thing is the warm-up that I was talking about earlier, working on your weak points, just slowly improving over time in that sense. The second thing, and this is probably the biggest one, 1v1ing players that are better than you in creative is a great way to improve. The way I did it back in the day was I would go to scrim discords and go to the looking for players section and 1v1 people from there. If I found a really good player, then I would just keep 1v1ing him as long as possible. But if I found somebody that was worse than me, I would just kind of say GG's and move on to the next person after a couple rounds. Nowadays, you can also use matchmaking to load into 1v1 maps and just keep searching till you find somebody that's around your skill level. The third thing that I vouch for getting better at fighting is watching pro players fight. Try to watch and see what techniques they use to actually outplay the opponent. And better yet, you can also watch Ken Beans and me on YouTube, and we do fighting breakdown videos where we slow down our fights, explain how we outplayed the opponent, and make it really easy to comprehend. Those are the 3 biggest ways that I recommend getting better at fighting. The thing is, you gotta be patient with it. It took me a couple seasons to be able to keep up with arena players, and then it's just been slowly improving from there to get to the point where I am today. For game 4, I'm just gonna let you get inside my mind on what I'm thinking throughout this game. For early game, I land at Condo Canyon in Cash Cups. The reason I land here is because there's like 4 different spots you can land at Condo, 4 different sections of loot, so I always make sure to land at one that's uncontested. From there, I rotate to one of the other ones and fight whichever player is there. That's why I like fighting at places like Condo Canyon off spawn, because you can literally just take it one fight at a time, instead of worrying at a place like Tilted being jumped by like 6 people at once, you know what I mean? After I went off spawn, I hop in a car and start working towards a good place to fight. I drive by Tilted here and I'm like, nah, that's not happening. I'm trying to keep this win streak going, so I don't want to fight somewhere like Tilted, that's center of the map, because a lot of people rotate there for fights, so you might end up fighting like 6 people at once. Instead, I rotate past Tilted and fight a player over here. This was an iffy spot to take a fight because it's still pretty close by Tilted, so people at Tilted might be able to hear shots and come third party. So as soon as I clean up that first fight, there's already another person here, and then another person, and then there's another person spideying in. So when there's a lot of players around like this, I make sure that I am not positioned in the middle of all the players, and I make sure that I branch out and I initiate a box fight. The reason you want a box fight in a situation like this is because that way you can't be visible to third-party sprays. If I remember correctly, this fight was in my last video with 10 medium building techniques. This was a great move. I boxed this player by placing cones first, that way he can't ramp up and get out of there. As soon as I finish up that fight, I start getting pressed by this other player. I wasn't that weak, so I initially go for shots to get him to back off. He keeps pressuring me, and that's when I hit this nasty shot to get him to back off. This is one of my favorite peeks to take. When you're double editing on somebody from above, if you turn your body sideways when taking the peek shot, it makes it feel like a right-hand peek and makes it easier to hit. So from there, I just get healed up and then initiate the fight again. This is where I outplay him like crazy. So the way I knew he was gonna go out the back there is because it was the farthest place for me to go to. He wanted to create distance, but cone's placed really far from you, so I was able to reach and get that cone and floor over him. From there, I just kept pushing people. I got in a really weird fight that lasted forever, and we both ended up disengaging because we were both low on mats, low on heals, everything, and I just got looted back up, and that brings us to this point in the game. Once it gets to this part of the game, I basically just pressure everybody. The main thing that you need to be paying attention to when pressuring at this point in the game is blocking your angles. Anytime I push somebody in endgame, I notice every direction that I can get sprayed from, and I always make sure to block off that side. And if somebody starts spraying at me, I stop pushing. I just wait for the spray to stop, and then once it calms down, that's when I start pushing again. So right there, for example, when I got that kill, I had my entire backside blocked. Nobody had an angle to spray on me, which made it super safe. And then right here, when I'm pressuring, we have walls on all sides of us, so the other player can't spray at us. If he does, he's gonna have to shoot through some layers. But I get weak here, so I take my time, I disengage, I hear the other players fighting, so I know I can heal up safely. And that brings us to the final 1v1 of the game. This was against a viewer. He set up a 1v1 on the other side of the map, but I was like, bro, it's moving zone. We're not gonna be able to 1v1 back there. He was pretty cracked. I honestly didn't play this fight that well, so I'm not even gonna break it down for you. Like, you can see I took 50-50s when I shouldn't have, but we still ended up winning. Now, when I was playing in game number 5 for a win streak, I literally got third-partied by a stream sniper when I was super weak and low on mats. It was just dumb. So we maybe could have kept this streak going, but all in all, this was nuts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, sub if you're new, use code JivanTV, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.